Hey everyone, Tyler here at The Movie Beat, back with another video update. This one is going to be more of a casual Korean movie recommendation video, as I've picked out 5 different Korean movies that I think are pretty unfamiliar to most people out there. And I think that these are best recommended to those who are seasoned Korean film viewers. So if you are brand new to Korean cinema, I would stay pretty far away from these. They are very dialogue heavy and they feature some pretty twisted relationship dynamics. So if you like films from Hong Sang-soo, this is definitely more in your lane. And I would even take it up another notch in just how kind of extreme that some of these movies get. So be warned there. Being so talky and dialogue heavy, I think one of the more difficult things is to translate or to make the subtitles in a way that really convey all of the nuance, the slang, the cultural, the mannerisms and everything like that. Very difficult to convey. I think it's kind of like if you had to subtitle and translate Tarantino's Pulp Fiction into all these different languages and try to incorporate the pop culture references, the slang, the nuance into the subtitles, and I think it's just almost impossible to do. Maybe anime does it really well, and they'll pick like the word and explain the slang somewhere else on the screen. But that's just, something that's unavoidable if we're not speaking all these different languages. So just know that going in. So all of these I have on DVD or Blu-ray, and I'll kind of show you guys my editions as we go through them. So I'm not going to be giving you guys full reviews. I'm just going to give you a brief rundown, show you my edition, and we'll start from there. So the first film that I want to encourage you to check out is called Jealousy Is My Middle Name, and this is the DVD edition. It's actually from Myung Films, and I believe it's out of print, but you can probably still find it. I could probably hunt down a copy of this or two. But this one is really interesting. It's directed by Park Chan-ok, who she made one other film called Paju, and a lot of people who have seen her films are like, just think it's a crime that she's not making more movies, or it's been so long between her films. So this one actually came out in 2002, and it features actors Park Hae-il and Bae Jong-ok, as well as Moon Sung-gun. So in this one, Park Hae-il plays a graduate student who starts working for an editor at a literary magazine, and he knows that the editor, played by Moon Sung-gun, is the man that his ex-girlfriend had cheated on him with, and so that is the reason that he is no longer with that woman, and he has kind of a dark motive for getting close to this man. The editor, played by Moon Sung-gun, who is a married man, and he cheated on his wife when he slept with Park Hae-il's girlfriend. He's this kind of self-proclaimed womanizer. He just can't help himself. So there's a new photographer that they begin to work with, who's played by Bae Jong-ok. Of course, this editor wants to get with her, but Park Hae-il also tries to start something with her. So he is trying to get in between the editor and his new fling, if you will. And the really interesting thing about this movie is the editor really starts to take an interest in Park Hae-il's character, and they grow kind of close. But Park Hae-il kind of keeps this secret with him throughout, and it starts getting really twisted as the photographer, who's played by Bae Jong-ok, starts to kind of realize she's in between these two men, and things kind of start to get really dicey. But this one really impressed me with the writing, the characterizations, the acting, kind of blew me away. So I definitely think that this one was pretty twisted, but definitely worth checking out. Comes with a full slip case, kind of a cool, interesting design with the flowers and everything. But inside, it's a single disc, and we've got just a little insert here that, of course, has a bunch of DVD recommendations for when this one came out. So this is a 2002 movie. We can see like Waikiki Brothers on the back, Contact, YMCA Baseball, JSA, a lot of old films from that time. So that's pretty cool. Inside, It talks a little bit about the director's short film, which is actually, I believe, on this disc. Yeah, it's on there. So it gives a little insight into her short film. There's a director's commentary. Of course, that's not subtitled. And just some other information in there, but a nice little insert. So that's Jealousy Is My Middle Name, my first recommendation for the Korean cinema viewing veterans out there. Definitely one that's going to it's going to stay in your mind for a while. That's an interesting one. The next one I want to recommend is, unfortunately, the only Blu-ray in this video, but it's called Woomukbaemi Love, or The Lovers of Woomukbaemi. So I think if you guys actually search for this on Letterboxd, it's under the title A Short Love Affair. So again, some of these, hard to kind of track down the actual title, but this one is from the Korean Film Archive Blu-ray collection. It's number 10, and the English title that they give is Lovers in Woomukbaemi. So Woomukbaemi is kind of the village that they live in. Probably the most recognizable actor in this is Park Jung-hoon, who was in Nowhere to Hide, Radio Star, Hyundai, and you've definitely seen him around. So this one's from way back, 1990, and it's directed by Jang Sun-woo, who I also have another of his films in this recommendation list. But he is, in my opinion, you can learn a little bit about him from this Blu-ray. There's some interesting stuff in here. He directed, his final film was Resurrection of the Little Match Girl, but his career as a film director in South Korea is one of the most interesting that I've ever read about, ever discovered, and his films are equally unique. So definitely, I would say this is a film director for the veterans to look into. Very, very interesting for me, especially. But this one is about a character played by Park Jung-hoon who is married. He has a child, and they move back to a rural village where he becomes kind of a tailor just to earn some income. At this factory, he starts to take a liking to one of the other female employees there. He's actually the only man there. He's really kind of full of himself, and he thinks he's just, all that. Of course, he's working with some older ladies who really like having a man around, but he kind of thinks that he's pretty privileged being a man, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. His wife nags him a lot at home, but he just kind of shrugs it off, and he's looking for maybe something else. And so he kind of begins this relationship with the woman who's his coworker, played by Chae Myung-gil, and they kind of just keep going off and having this secret love affair that doesn't really turn out the way that maybe this man hoped for. And the way that this film twists, I don't really want to give anything away, but you do know pretty much from the beginning of this film that his wife is going to find out, and she is fiery. And when that goes down in this movie, it becomes one of just the craziest, kind of like a little bit of a revenge plot, affair type movie that I've ever seen. I really, really got into it. It looks really good. The acting is phenomenal. It's definitely a twisted relationship love story. Fits right into this list. I definitely can't recommend it enough. So this is cool Blu-ray edition from Korean Film Archive. It comes with a single disc and a book. This book also has English in it. You can learn a lot about the director as well as just the release of this film. Maybe it's based on a book, and one of the most interesting things I found out about this movie after I read through this is just based on director Jang Sun-woo, his first few movies and what he did after this. It was very interesting that he chose to adapt this kind of a movie that might seem on its surface to be a little bit generic, commercial. Well, you got it like this affair movie relationship. I think this was pretty popular when it came out, but then you kind of look into maybe some of the motivations for it, and I found it pretty interesting. It's got an essay on the filmmaker, Jang Sun-woo, as well as a little essay from Tony Ryans, a film critic, on this film. So it's a pretty good booklet. There's some great special features on here as well. There's a feature-length commentary, as well as some talk from Mark Raymond, a film critic, and Darcy Paquette, which is on here. There is a little interview with Jang Sun-woo that has some subtitles as well, so that's cool. Inside, single disc. This is Lovers in Woomukbaemi. Definitely check it out if you guys like kind of twisted relationship. All of these kind of like deal with, I guess you could say, affair-ish type stories, but all done extremely different. So this is going to be a journey like none other if you haven't seen any of these and you're kind of doing them back to back. The next one I want to recommend is called Lover, or this is another one that has a lot of different titles. The Korean title is Ain, but the letterboxed title for this film is The Intimate, or Lover, and it stars Sung Hyun-ah and Jo Dong-hyuk. So Sung Hyun-ah, you guys have probably seen her in Scarlet Letter. She was in Hong Sang-soo's film Woman is the Future of Man, and a few other films, but nothing really recently. So in this one, Sung Hyun-ah, she plays a woman who is engaged to be married very soon, I think within a month, and she's out at this kind of art gallery, kind of walking around, and she meets this handsome stranger guy who's also just kind of, one of the few people in this area. They just hit it off and they start talking and they get to know each other and they have this little love affair, whatever you want to call it. And the interesting thing about this film is they really don't explain to each other their lives. So they don't know if each other are married, they don't know if they're in a relationship, but they just base their entire relationship off of what they learn about each other on this day. So they're with each other all day long. They walk together, they talk together, they go to a hotel together, go to a park, and this movie really kind of reminded me of kind of a darker, more cynical Before Sunset. It wasn't as enjoyable, I would say, as that movie, and it didn't have as good of dialogue, but the way that this film ended really kind of stuck with me, and I just couldn't get it out of my mind for a long time. It's also pretty sexually explicit, if you were comparing this to other Korean films, so know that maybe going in. Maybe you can get a little hint of that from the cover here. So it's a pretty cool full slip DVD edition. I like all of the posters, all of the art for this. They really included all of it with this edition. So yeah, there's the full slip. Take it out. So there's the third poster, which is nice there. And so here you can kind of get the gist of the film. This is kind of the little log line. For just one day, we will be lovers. So lovers for one day. Inside, we got the disc, nice little insert. About movie, production note, characters and cast, a little bit about the director, Kim Tae-eun, who really did not make any other movies after this that I could find. So that's a little bit of a bummer, and maybe some of the different scene selections there. One thing that I also found very interesting about this film was actor Jo Dong-hyuk, who I also hadn't really seen in a lot of main roles. He was in that Korean TV series Bad Guys and the movie in one of the supporting roles. He was in another movie called Love at the End of the World, but that's really independent, like not big movie. So I actually really liked him in this, and it kind of made me like regret that he wasn't in more movies. So I think this is probably one of his better performances overall. So this one is from 2005. It's also kind of an oldie, but definitely another one that's very talky and pretty like morally ambiguous as far as like what is right, what is wrong. I think this movie kind of questions a lot of that. All of these movies in this list could be pretty disturbing if you, don't like having those boundaries pushed or explored, especially when it comes to relationships and things like that. I know that can be a pretty sensitive topic for a lot of people, so definitely be warned. These could disturb based on, just the behaviors and all that, but keep in mind, it's fiction, so don't worry too much. Another one that I want to recommend, this is another one directed by Jang Sun-woo. So this director, again, he made that Woomukbaemi Lovers and Resurrection of the Little Match Girl, bad movie. He's made some very interesting films. This film, Road to the Racetrack, oh my God. probably features one of the most toxic relationships I've ever seen in a movie, period. Very tough to watch. So this one stars Kang Soo-yeon and Moon Sung-gun, who is also in that Jealousy Is My Middle Name, who I recommended earlier. He was the editor in that film. They play characters named R and J, and they lived together when they were doing their doctor's thesis in Paris, France. And so they kind of got out of their Korean shell, I guess. I don't know how else you might describe that, but they are able to now see Korea from the perspective of kind of like a foreigner, and they are very, very critical of Korean society and kind of comparing it to the West, things that you can't do in Korea that you can do. Maybe it's more acceptable in the West. They're kind of these intellectual types that overanalyze pretty much everything about society. They meet together in cafes all the time. But the main drama in this film is that the man, he is actually married and he has a child, and he was married before he went to Paris in France, and that is where he met her. And so while he's there, he really grows distant from his wife. He's trying to divorce her, but his wife will not divorce him. And I would probably have to brush up on my Korean divorce law, but I think in the early 90s, when this film came out, 1991, it was much more tricky, and things like affairs were treated much more seriously and harshly as far as how it relates to the law. I think you could have gone to jail for, if you could prove that there was an affair. And so they have this very toxic relationship that they always go out of town, they meet up at some kind of cafe, and the way that this film kind of sexualizes their relationship is very bizarre, because I guess it would have been a serious crime if they, could prove that this affair was taking place. So Jay will not sleep with R as close as they get, and they kind of have this weird game that they play back and forth. It's really toxic. It seems like the man is like fully dominating, controlling her behavior, manipulating her. It seems pretty terrible. And then as this film progresses, you start to learn that there is a lot more to her personality as well, and it's kind of like a little bit more 50-50 than you initially thought on just how toxic the relationship is and how they kind of manipulate each other. So this one is extremely long. I believe it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and when it's pretty much all dialogue, that could be testing on a lot of people's patience, but I was really into this. Like, all of the dialogue, it was crazy. I could not believe how the relationship was unfolding and what I was learning about these characters as the film was going on. So, oh my God, this just makes this director, Jung Sun-woo, just that much more interesting. I have his other films. There's a couple of his that I haven't seen yet, but I have them and I do plan to check them out for sure. But this one really stuck with me. I rated it on my Letterboxd account a 9 out of 10, and I don't do that very often. So this one definitely just had an intellectual side that blew me away. And I could see how this could be very angering to a lot of people, just in how the different buttons that it presses. So definitely a very interesting film, The Road to the Racetrack. The final one I want to recommend, much lighter, although it's still pretty heavy, is called The Magicians. Now, this film is just my secret recommendation to you guys. It's a movie that is so interesting, so unique, that I think it deserves a lot more attention than it's gotten. So this one came out in 2005, and it's from director Song Il-gon, who has always made some of my personal favorite Korean movies, like Spider Forest or Feathers in the Wind, Flower Island, and maybe his most famous one is called Always. But I think this one might be his most unique, and it's about some band members. So they were all part of this one band who meet up on December 31st, and I think it's the 3rd anniversary of the death of one of their bandmates. And they meet up in this cafe in the middle of this like forest. So it's kind of a cafe bar in the middle of this forest. And they're kind of reminiscing about their time together. They haven't seen each other in a long time. and they kind of talk about their lost friend and just different things about their life and things that they regret. But this whole movie is made to look like a single take. I believe there's like 3 or 4 edits, like hidden edits in this film, but the way that the camera kind of floats throughout this cafe, this bar, and the forest, and it's, you know, mostly nighttime that this film takes place in. It's just so magical, and that fits with the title, The Magicians. I like the sub-name, or the little log line, The Day They Gathered, the Moment the Magic Starts, which is awesome because they are the magicians. This is a 2-disc DVD edition from Plains, and it's got a, you know, white little slipcase here. And here is the cover. I think this film also features some amazing music. I'm really glad that they include the music video for Sylvia, kind of the signature song from the film on here. I'll try to find a link to the trailer. I believe they actually have that song in the trailer, and I'll put it in the description box. I think it's one of the best trailers ever made. I personally love to watch trailers, not before, I don't want to watch the trailer before the movie, but I watch trailers after I see the movie, and it kind of sums up everything that I saw, kind of helps me remember the whole experience. And this is one that just gives me chills from beginning to end, which is, in my opinion, when I get those chills when I watch a trailer after seeing a movie, is the main sign of whether or not it was good. So, tons of special features. It's a 2-disc edition. No little insert, but both discs here. Let's see. Something on the director. One single movie project. I think that's more about how they tried to incorporate it as like a single shot. So there's a very stage-like quality to this film. It kind of feels like you're on the stage with these performers at, you know, like a Broadway event type of thing. It does have a lot of different commentaries as well, so this is another one that I would have just loved to have English subtitles for the commentary. So that's going to be it for this one. Let me know if you guys see any of these and what you think about them in the comments below. Again, this one is much more targeted to the Korean cinema watching veterans out there. Very dark, very twisted, very interesting relationship films that kind of just press a lot of the different taboo buttons. So that's always something that I find very interesting in films. So I think if you're like me, you might find these rewarding. So as always, if you guys like this content, please like and subscribe. Would really appreciate it if you would maybe check out my Patreon page and consider donating there, just to sort of help keep the lights on and encourage me to continue putting this content out. Thanks everybody. Until next time, I'm Tyler at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.